What's the importance of having a website in a time when AI and agents are making them look like they're maybe not necessary anymore? And if I'm wrong, please let me know.
That's a good question, one to start off with. Being a domain broker and working with entrepreneurs and people who build businesses, I believe a website of any substance, even if it's just a very thin site or you're going to go and write articles and articles and articles, you need a home base. And having a home base, you have control over the message of your business, what your accomplishments are, what they're going to be, what you're trying to do. And then also it's a repository of information about your business where a large language model will be feeding from to figure out how to put you in it. If you have no information about yourself or nowhere really where it's being stored, it's not very easy for those models to find who you are. And then also, I would say prioritize you over competitors or similar services or understand what differentiates you. Because you can't really easily do that on, say, like an Instagram page or TikTok with shorts all the time. Not all the large language models have access to those. So again, having a repository where they can read it, they're not magicians. It's actually very basic, where it is well regarded, well written information that it can understand and apply to your audience. You need to have that 100%. And I can't see a way out of that in the future.
Hey, business leaders and marketers, what if your brand could be featured right here? This ad spot could be yours. This channel is watched by a dedicated audience of ambitious founders, executives, and professionals who are actively looking for tools and services to help their business grow. If you want to put your brand in front of this highly dedicated audience that's difficult to reach, I'm currently looking for a few strategic partners for the channel. To learn more about sponsorship opportunities, click the link in the description. Let's grow together. Why have people made a career out of buying domains and then just holding them until someone offers them a good price?
Well, there's a long version and a short version of that. The thing is with domains is the best analogy I can make is it's property. So 100 years ago in the United States, there were people who bought giant swaths of land, like Ted Turner is, I think, the biggest landowner in the United States, who was buying acres of land for $1, $2, $5 a piece all across and people thought he was crazy because who the hell wants to build there? It's a very similar thing. I know people that are some of the original domain investors and they thought they were neat and unique and they just are kind of collectors, like people who collect baseball cards when they weren't worth anything. And then it just kind of grew. And then all of a sudden this collection, somebody wanted their domain and they're like, wait a minute, these are worth something. But it's not like this blind thing where like a domain investor is sitting here and saying, how can I fuck over this company and register this and hold it and they're going to need it for me? I mean, they're obviously nefarious people, but when you go to the conferences and you talk to an investor and they talk to you about X domain they just bought or Y, a lot of them are entrepreneurs like us. And a lot of them talk to you with this excitement about what it could become, or in a lot of cases, what they're planning to do with it. So a lot of these guys own a lot of names, like empty lots in their developer. And you talk to them and it's like a CD changing. I'm dating myself, but like hitting next and hearing the next song, I just keep naming names, and they've been up all night dreaming of these things. And they'll talk to you about, oh, what kind of brand it could be, what it's going to do. And so that's really it. And that's what these people become. There was a period of time, it's going away, where buying particular domains would make a lot of advertising revenue. And there was a side of the business that was quite strong. It's still there, but it's not what it used to be. But that was another reason why a lot of people bought domains for a period of time. But what's happening today is more what I'm explaining. And then on the side of the business, so people can understand a little better, when you get into 3-lettered, 2-letter, and numbered domains, those are kind of called chips. And in the Chinese markets or the Asian markets, they trade them almost like cryptocurrency, and the values of them go up and down on a regular basis. And they kind of go with trends. And you being in Vietnam, I'm guessing the Vietnamese language uses a lot of numbers. And then with the numbers, it's a phonetical thing where like if it's 234, that could mean like love you, or 143 can mean I love you. Well, that means something in Mandarin. Makes it more
That's common in Chinese culture. That's very common in Chinese culture. I don't know enough Vietnamese to be able to discern whether that also happens here.
Yeah, I made a broad generalization of Asians. It's probably bad of me to do that, but there's multiple sides of the domain business, which causes these investors to do these things. And again, what I think a lot of people don't realize are some of the biggest domain investors in the world are domain investors that didn't want to be them. So, for example, Microsoft owns about 60,000 domain names that they've acquired over the years for different projects, buying different companies that own domains. I know the person that manages their whole portfolio. He's a great guy. And he's like, sometimes we get these names and we sit here and we say, we don't know what to do with them, but we can't sell them because it would be too dangerous to our brand to do that, even if they don't resolve. Or it could be used for a project 20 years from now. So they'd rather hold them, or unless someone makes an obscene offer, then they'll sell them. So, there's a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I've seen people reporting on news where, for example, Apple will register a new domain or Sony will register a new domain, and they speculate about what it could mean for a future product line or these kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is there's when you deal with a company the size of Apple or Sony or whatever it is, um, usually a person like me or a company like that would call me and say, hey, we want this domain name. They're not going to tell me all the time what it is, but we'll go out there and say, oh, cool, Sony just hired me. We're going to go get this. And then you get it, and it never becomes anything. It just sits there dead. You check it 5 years from now, it's dead. Or it can become, a pretty big product, or it turns into a really small side thing. So, I mean, you can't speculate so much when they do these things because there's just so many small teams and different things going on in these companies. It's not usually always this paramount thing that's going on.
What's the largest amount of money you've seen change hands for a domain?
On a sale that I've personally been part of, or in our industry?
That you've been a part of, and then the largest in the industry.
Um, well, the largest public one I was part of was Sex.com for 13 million. I've been part of a larger one, but I can't really talk about it. But it was a little bit higher than that. The biggest one that's reported publicly, I believe, was Voice.com, and I think that was either 20 or 25 million a couple of years ago. But I also know of some other domains that sold for more than that, but those were private when very large brands wanted something specific and the person who owned it wouldn't move, and that surpassed the Voice.com sale. So they do sell for a lot of money from time to time.
What's the most difficult thing about being in the industry that you're in that you have to face all the time?
I think the thing is, in the domain business in general, what I love about it and what I hate about it is that you get to work with a lot of new business people every day, and that you get to hear about new things that are happening and hearing that excitement about people's products and services and goals, and hearing some of if you get to know them, you hear about some of the challenges they're having, and that's a really exciting thing in the business. On the flip side, even working with very high end executives or that same budding entrepreneur is sometimes having a client that their attitude is that the person who owns the domain is immediately a squatter, and they get aggressive about it. And you try to explain to them that that's not really the case, and they're unwilling to hear about that, and they made their mind up that that's the case. And I really want to find this resource where a lot of people call someone a squatter because someone owns that domain. And it's funny because that product or service wasn't an idea or even a glimmer of an idea 6 months ago. And when you say this guy's owned this domain for 15 years, they call them a squatter. And it's like, did this guy look into the future and know you wanted to name this business this? Like, he didn't intentionally get this domain for that. And, I think that people need to understand that sometimes, again, it's a Microsoft situation or a person that invested a lot of money to build something. Maybe it's about to launch. Maybe they went in another direction. But sometimes people are unwilling and unreasonable about that. And I think that can be frustrating for me at times.
Have you ever had to just tell clients like I don't want to work with you anymore because of it or something else?
Not because of it. I've fired customers before, and I think one of the things is when I was in my 20s before I got into the domain business, I sold loans and I sold an HR product similar to like a monster.com, and then I got in the domain business. And throughout my younger years, I was always so worried about the customer, making them happy, pandering to them, even if it was a bad deal, even if it was business I didn't want. And I think now, with a lot of customers, if I'm going to give my time, one of the things I really want most of the time is a phone call. If they're unwilling to talk to me, I don't need a long time, but it's just really to have a discussion to say, this is how I work. This is what I'm seeing. This is what we should expect, at least just like that 8 or 10 minutes. And usually the transactions I'm involved in on the very low end are a few $1,000s going up to a lot of money. If they won't give me that, then they're probably not going to pay the bill if it ever came, or when the work comes and then it's time to make that decision, they're not serious. So I'll just say, maybe I'm not the right person for you. I've had customers. I had one, I was working on selling one of his names, and he called me and I didn't answer. I was talking to somebody else and doing some things. And he sent me a text saying, whenever a contractor works for me, when I call, you answer. And I just said, maybe I'm not the right guy for you. I think 20 years before I'd been like, yes, sir, I will. But now at the point I'm at, I just say, yeah, that I'm not a fit, And I think it's mentally, health wise, it's good for you to be to say no rather than have that demon in your life, because it's just not worth the money or the headache, because tomorrow someone else will come that you can work with, that you enjoy working with.
There was a guy I interviewed in the recent past who had some of his team basically be harassed by their clients in a similar manner, like not treating them well, expecting more from them than could fairly expect. And this was really hurting the culture of the company. And that was because when he had first started the company, he had this idea of pleasing the customer and doing everything for the customer. And so the team was trained to have the same mentality. And when he started seeing how his employees were basically ready to quit because of how like messed up they were from the experience and how it hurt them so much and how it was hurting the business, he realized that he had to protect his employees, even if it meant firing his customers. And so he had to have a meeting with the whole team and go, hey, look, I'm sorry that this has happened. It's my fault because this was my personality and this was my belief and I've been wrong. I need to put you first. And so if someone is treating you in a way that you don't feel, is fair, you don't appreciate that, then, if you don't feel comfortable handling that situation, come to me and I'll deal with the customer. And don't ever be afraid to tell me if someone's taking advantage of your time, your energy, or harassing you or whatever. And when he started to do that, the team became really happy and motivated, and their revenue started to skyrocket because they were not afraid of the customers anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is that you gotta defend your employees, and you gotta show loyalty to them. I think when they're wrong and they make mistakes, you need to admit what the mistakes are, and call the customer and take it, head on. But like I said before, if one of the people that works for me calls me and says, this customer is harassing me, he won't leave me alone, you got to call them and you got to create what the company is going to do and what it isn't going to do. And if today this whole time with a customer for the last year was a certain way and it's not working for the business, things change. And I think if you communicate that to a customer and say, look, we can't provide this, this, and this anymore, but we still can provide these things, and that's it. And if they don't like it, you unfortunately maybe take the hit and they leave. But a lot of the times, those customers, like like an asshole at a restaurant, they know if these people they come in and they're an asshole at every restaurant, they're probably going to get what they want, and they know a special way to get it. And they're probably like that at most places. But if you just say, look, this is it, we're not giving you anything else, he'll probably make a big stink, but he'll probably be back a week later because he likes eating there, and it's just the way it is. And they're just going to keep pushing. And sometimes you got to push back in the nicest of way, or just say, look, we're not doing that. Or do you want to pay us more? It's like, that's it. And that's how it works with me in our business as well. We'll have someone come with 1,000 domains and he wants me to put a price on each of them. And I say, okay, so you want me to spend the next 2 days working on pricing your names? Okay, I charge $450 an hour for that. And then, oh no, I don't want that. Well, so there you go, and that's okay.
So the dream business is one that has sustainable revenue that occurs once a month, something like this. I have never been able to build a business like that personally. I've tried to, it's been very hard. The business that I found the most success in was the client typically paid me one time and maybe I saw them again like another year later, or they may recommend one of their friends that also has a business to me. But I've never had something that's sustainable. And I've tried something that was a bit more seasonal. I've tried different kinds of things, and I've struggled in different ways for each of them. What does your business look like in terms of that? Is there a season to this? Is there a cycle to this? Is it something that's more consistent?
So 2 years ago, we pretty much were on track to sell a domain every single day of the year last year. The year before, we were right over 400. This year, we're targeting about the same number, but our amount of sales, our sales volume is higher. So we've been growing. And I think the thing is, the thing is that in our business, usually the summertime slows a bit. The fourth quarter, in a lot of ways, people have budget left, or want to buy it to start the year and plan on that. And then January and February and March usually are pretty good months. February is usually relatively slow because people go on vacation and people get their tax bill and are kind of focused on that. But it's not a bad month. It's just because it's short. But I will say that the domain business has always been pretty robust. When since I've been in the business since 2010, I mean, we've seen some ups and downs, and when it's gone down and the economy and things go down, it's gone down with it. But it's one of the first to pop back up, fortunately.
How long does it take on average to take a deal from start to finish? Because you're saying that you're on track to do at least one sale a day. That sounds like a tremendous amount of stress to be selling every day. So what's the process? What's the time frame to be able to sell something?
Okay. Yeah. So there's two sides of the business, really. So we have domain owners that own anywhere between 100 or thousands of domains that we work with. And if you were to go to party.com, you'll see our for sale lander sitting there. It's like a for sale page. And so we sell names for them. And that's where a buyer would come to us and a house for sale. And we're also calling and emailing companies to help sell their domains. And then the flip side of it is a company comes to us and says, we'd like to buy this specific domain. Or they say to us, we're starting a business. This is what it's going to do. And we need a domain that kind of fits this idea of a brand. And this is a ballpark budget of what we're going to do. I would probably say the selling for our client side is probably 60% of the number of sales. And then the buying side is about 40. To keep that volume going, I have 5 other salespeople that work for us. I have 5 other people doing lead generation and other support people, 2 or 3 other support people as well. And then again, like any salesperson would know, having a very robust CRM that is extremely organized with a process, and you are kind of like the Spartans and the phalanx with the shields and the swords, and you're going together and you're going through it step by step by step, and having everybody know what they're supposed to do when, talking about it, fixing problems, adjusting, and then moving on. So some of the sales, like typically when somebody inquires to buy a domain name with one of our sellers, the average sale time is about 86 days from the start. On the buying side, I would say it's a little shorter. Whether they end up buying or it's not going to happen, you find out usually a lot faster than that. So I would say that's around like 30 or 45 days. The reason why on the other side the time is much greater is a lot of the times an entrepreneur or someone on the business unit that wants the domain name inquires, and they're not there yet to be able to pay 15, 20 or 30,000 or 10,000 or even $5,000, but they know now, and they disappear for X amount of time, and they go get the money or they get their funding, and then they come back and then they'll get it. And so that's where it kind of stretches it out. On the flip side, person's like, I really want this name. You get the price, and you usually, a lot of the times they figure out very quickly, like, I have really good taste in domains, even though people don't realize it. But then they find out that domain's $1 million, right? And then they're like, holy fuck, I never realized domains could sell for that much money. And you're like, yeah. But I usually will tell them in the beginning, if you told me a domain, I'm going to say, okay, I have probably, if this person is reasonable and understands the market, the price most likely will be X. Are you prepared, to spend that? And if people say, no, I was thinking like 1,000 or 2,000, then I'd say, okay, well, these are the kinds of domains that you would probably be able to get. And it's like, I can help you do that. Or, we can look at some other places and you can find them on your own. And then, that one's done, and then you move on to the next. So some of them are very quick in that way. But other acquisitions, for example, companies want the name, you get it, you're negotiating, they take a step back, and it can take years, and then they end up with it. So you just never know.
I got stuck into this idea when you were talking about how sometimes the sale takes longer because the buyer needs to find the cash. Have you considered creating a business where you loan them the money to buy the website, so that or like a mortgage, or like you own the website until they pay you off plus interest, so that you can shorten that time frame?
We offer at our company up to 5 years for people to make payments. There's also a company called Domain Capital that does finance domain names. On the payments that we take, it would be like a lease to own, and then they add like a little bit of interest to it to keep it basic. And some buyers are open to that. Other people aren't really willing to even think about that. On the domain financing side, the problem with domains in general, unless they're like a oneword.com or oneword.ais or very specific types of names, if you had a name like ultrathink.com, which we recently sold to, or helped acquire a company to buy it for like $3,800. I know it was ultrathink.ai for $3,800. He got a good price on the name, but if you finance that for him, even if he put down 50% and then he doesn't sell it, you can't just liquidate that name to get your money back. And we have absolutely no plans of using it and getting and selling that in a reasonable amount of time to another person who might want it for another project is not something that's going to happen. And so if you multiply that times 50 or 60 throughout a year, because a lot of these, even when we do the payment plans, they default, wouldn't work, right? But if it was like intelligence.ai or intel.ai or data.ai, and you could lend at a good rip, like with data.ai, that's over $1 million domain, and you could sell that to a domain investor this minute for $200,000 this minute. So I would lend 100 on that, no problem, right? But most of the time, the economics don't make out work on those. So that's when you would be like, okay, data.ai seller, why doesn't this person put 20% down? They can use the domain and then make monthly payments or quarterly payments or whatever it is. And what ends up happening a lot of the times is these people try to make a very small upfront down payment. They put the domain on their deck. They go and try to get funding. They go and act like they have the domain. They don't get the funding they needed or the investors they wanted or whatever doesn't pan out. And then they just stop paying, which isn't a bad thing because that's what's kind of pitched to them, that they're able to get it together without a large, but taking a large risk. And that, to me, if it was me, I would do the same thing if your business isn't there yet, and that's a good option.
Are you using any sort of automations or AI in your operations?
We do. I do it to enrich a lot of data that we have. We go out and we comb and look for buyers. We look for companies that are getting funding, got funding, looking like they have good growth, trying to match them with domains that our company's clients have to potentially pitch them. We also look at them to pitch our services to, and we use AI to do that. When it comes to like selling and other automation, I haven't done that. I'd rather use the people I have because I feel in our business it takes more of a intimate connection and like more empathetic approach by talking to and kind of creating that connection. So I don't think AI can do that the way that I want the salespeople I have to do it yet. And then on the development side, I know all of our developers and our project managers are using AI considerably on a daily basis.
What's the most important thing you've learned in your life so far?
I think being honest is really important, even if honesty hurts. And I think being loyal, which kind of goes hand in hand to those around you. And again, even if it's not the easiest decision. And I think that those two rules in my life have really, in an unselfish I don't want to sound insincere with it, but it has really paid off in my life because I have friends from from when I was like 5 years old, and I have friends from college, and I have business people that call me and ask advice. Even competitors call and ask me for advice or ask me what I'm doing, and I tell them, and we share information and we work together. And I think that loyalty of mine has also burned me a few times, but all in all, and same with being honest. That's why I'm not really great at working in big companies, is I just kind of say it like it is, and sometimes people don't like that.
Thanks for watching. If you liked this insight, I've handpicked another video for you right here on the screen. For more actionable strategies that get you real results, hit subscribe.